last night from Johannesburg to be here. I thought, we always start off with our mandate and all of those things and so on. I thought, and listening today and hearing from what has happened, I thought, let me give you the formal speech so that you can have it for your archives and so on. But let me address the issues that you've raised during this week that you've been here. And I'd like to start off by saying, can we pay tribute to those 49 people that have passed on in the Eastern Cape because of the floods. And it's not the first time. The Commission had an inquiry into the issues about storms and water and what happened in KZN last year and the year before, because we then we appointed a commissioner to deal with climate justice. Not only climate change, but climate justice. Because, and let me tell you the reason why I'm saying this. And when we did that, it is the following. Let me start off here in the Western Cape. The Cape Flats and many other townships get flooded every winter because water, when the water falls, when there's a downpour, water needs a way of finding itself. And we have storm drains where water needs to go in and flow into the sea. But because those drains are not cleaned, those drains are not serviced, so it clog up and water cannot go and have its natural flow. And then it flows into the yards and floods people's yards. You must go to Philippi, you must go to Nyanga, you must go to Bishop Lavis, and you'll see. And when we talk about climate change, we understand that. We understand the climate change, but we also understand climate justice. In order to minimize the issue about climate change that's affecting our communities, government needs to do what they need to do is clean those drains, have a plan when they know winter's coming, how do we work with it? When we take KwaZulu-Natal or Eastern Cape or any other province, bridges are not built, bridges are not maintained. So people have to cross rivers and die and drown in those rivers. So if you know, and we've got scientists that knows about climate change and advise government and advise the institutional bodies to say, you need to do A, B, C, D. Let me tell you, because you're asking about tackling corruption. During our hearing in KZN on the water shortage, and of course the storms that happened there, we found that water treatment plants are not working, and then they get sabotaged, and then the company, or then the government, or the water boards, then employ companies to take water with tanks to the communities. And the tanks goes to the river and pump the water untreated, and then go and doesn't pay for it, but get paid by government for it, and then go distribute it in cans to people. Water is a right. And how can then a municipality or a government structure continues to distribute water through all these water tanks? In Neisner, there's a director whose friend or whose nephew got the contract for distributing water through water tanks. Fix the treatment plants. Not go and then for years do a tender for having water to be brought by tanks. So that is how you have to speak up and stand up and speak about those things. So when we talk about those issues, it is really talking about how do we get to the bottom of corruption. And some people may not see it. Some people say it's normal. But I give you these two examples to explain to you how corruption works in our country. You've all listened to the Zondo Commission, I'll come to that. We talked about the farmers and the farm working, and thank you for that question about what about the farm workers. Woolworths has got a program calling Farming for the Future. And that is to deal with climate change and how do you do sustainable farming, and they're very good at that. And perhaps one should look at that program that they have. It's a very sustainable program that takes into consideration the climate change. In our case, we call it climate justice. We appreciate the farmers. We know one day in Parliament, one member of Parliament said to the other member of Parliament, don't talk bad about farmers with food in your mouth. So we appreciate farmers. We appreciate the fact that they are key in the food security and production of food. And hence also the Commission has always said we condemn farm killings. And farm killings are not only farm owners, but also farm workers. You will recall how 2 people were killed in Limpopo and then fed to the pigs. The case is now on in the High Court in Polokwane. So we need to bring that balance about that. So we appreciate. But what is of concern and then contributes to the climate justice issues is that you take farm workers from a farm, you evict them, and you put them in squatter camps. And we call it a 4x4. Because the courts, when the farmer applies, it's sometimes illegal or legal, then you apply to the court, and the court will, as the respondent, the local municipality, and the local municipality then gives you, yes, we can put them up there in a 4x4. And a 4x4 is not the SUV. It is a 4x4 structure of corrugated iron, the sheet that you can actually tear with your hand like this. And so you create a situation that even there, when they give the contract for somebody to construct those, again, it's friend of a friend that gets the contract. And then you go into those houses or those structures. They don't even have a floor. I mean, a cement floor. It's just gravel. And I would like you to go into those communities, and it's not far. I can give you those communities, all the names of those communities. But let me take the ones between Mbekweni and Wellington, New Rest. In 16th of December 2016, a farm called Khoikhoi, about 50 people were evicted. And you remember when they stayed on the farm, they had 3 rooms and furniture. And now they've got to compound those furniture into a 4x4. And all the family members stays there. If you go there today, the filth that's lying around there, just the filth. Communal toilets. And people said to me, when we were on the farm, we had 95% school attendance because it's a farm school. Now, we have 5%. And the mother says to me, I can't let my boy or my daughter go to that toilet because they'll get raped. You see, the injustices. So whilst we appreciate the farmer and the farm workers' attempt to really conserve and make sure that they do what is in the best interest. And can I tell you, the farm workers are very good at sustainability and ensuring that there's climate justice. And so between the two of them, they bring forth what we need to do. So the socio-economic effects on the issue about climate change and so on, and climate justice, we really need to have it deep. But as ministers of religion, as theologians, you should know that God also gave you the responsibility to look after the environment. You look after the environment. You know, there's an old man that told me one day, he said he was, I can't recall the psalm now, but he said he was working in this garden and worship God in the beautiful of His holiness. And he said, you know, I'm working in this garden as a laborer. And they asked him, why are you doing this? He said, because I want to worship God in the beauty of His holiness. But that brings me also to the question asked about food gardens. I grew up in a township where we had food gardens, where we had chickens, we had, and flowers in front. Remember, flowers in front and then the other food at the back. But today, because of the housing crisis, our people are farming with shacks in the backyards. They're farming with shacks because they can get more in having a Wendy house and other shacks in the backyards so they can get some money. Right? On top of that, in the poorer areas, the municipality are taxing our people for paying water. So how you want to have food gardens, but you have to pay water. So, yes, Trevor, answering your question, it is that issue that we are now farming with shacks in our backyards. And therefore, food security at that level is not there. And it forces us, as the poor people, are being forced to go to the spaza shops and buy from the spaza shops expired food and then also food that's contaminated. And the result of that is that it's poor nutrition and it faces a lot of health issues. So, we need to look at that and say, yes, let's go back. But then there's also responsibility of the community. We cannot also always blame government. My grandmother used to say, "Jy kan arm wees, maar jy moet skoon wees." You can be poor, but you must be clean. And therefore, if you clean your own yard, and you clean in front of your yard in the street, and everybody does that, you've got a clean yard, a clean street, a clean township. But the filth in our townships, obviously the municipality has got the responsibility. But we too, and therefore, as leaders in your community, as leaders in your congregations, you too need to emphasize how do we encourage our people to start cleaning their yards and cleaning their environment. And engage the municipality to say, we're cleaning the stuff and we'll put it there and please come and fetch it. Encourage the municipality to say, bring us a container where we can take it and you can bring it. Apart from your weekly collection, let us do it and put it there. But also recycling. Recycling is very important. How many plastics are around? And it reminded me that during the time of Minister Bali Musa, when he was the Minister of Environmental Affairs, he was the one that brought in the tax or the payment for the plastics. That has not decreased the plastics. The plastics are still there. But who benefits from that act of Parliament? Are the shop owners, are the retail stores. Before we didn't pay for it, now we have to pay for those plastics. And I mean, where's the justice in that? So we're talking about our communities having to recycle, etc., and so on. But it's also our responsibility as the communities to say, how do we do recycling? Even in our own homes, how do we recycle? I sometimes get, when Tombekaya, my daughter, was still at home, I would get, she says, what's like a hawk's eye? Why are you putting that tin into the rubbish bin? And why can't you take the peels of the potatoes and that and put it in there? And you're so like tiptoeing around when you cook there because you need to know you are going to. And one of the lessons she learned me about potato skins is she said to me, what you do with potato skins, because we peel the skins of the potatoes, and then you take almost like 20% of the potato, you take it off. And then she said, no, wash it properly, skin the potato, dry it, and then you salt and pepper, and you put it in the pan, and you have nice crisps. And it's true. People throw it away. Even poor people throw it away. So always I tell them the story. Reverend, I say to them, don't throw away what you can eat, because we do that. But I thought I talked to you about that. Let me tell you about the commission. Let me go to the food prices. Many years ago, during apartheid, when we were fighting and we had sanctions, and the South African Council of Churches was in the forefront of it to ensure that we speak to our partners, particularly in the Western world, about how we need to encourage those governments from imposing sanctions on the apartheid government. Mercedes-Benz was one of them. And what they did in the Lutheran Church was the Evangelische Kirche of Deutschland was one of those who really pushed for it. And what they did, they encouraged their members to buy shares in a company. And at the annual general meeting of a company, then they go there and they then protest and say, you are building Mercedes-Benz trucks that goes into the townships and kill the people. You see, so the activism that we have is lacking today. So today we must also go and say, on the food prices, I think how many people I go into a shop and I said, oh my God, how many people can afford this? How many people can afford? And so there's no protest from the church or from religious bodies to say our people are starving. To say, can we not? And maybe that's the way. Look at the annual reports of the food companies, the retail, the food chains shops. Look at that. Look at the returns to the investors. Look at the returns to the directors and shareholders. And you'll see it's amazing. I think at one stage, Whitey Basson, who was the CEO of Shoprite, got 200 million rand a year. And then another 100 million in shares. I think it's alleged. I won't say it's alleged, but that is the figures that were thrown around. Now, how can, and that brings me again to how can the poor suffer and the rich get richer? And that's why the Commission has got a program called Pro-Poor Budget. Pro-Poor Budget. So we're engaging government departments and we're engaging the municipalities and say to them, how do you budget in order to get the poor? And I'll come to that on the corruption side. How can you not put your budget towards the poor? And it's alleged that one head of a commission a province, HOD in one province, that said, we are looking after our tax base. And our tax base is about 3%, 4%. If that is correct. But each one of us, each one of your congregation members, each one of us in society will also pay tax. And why are the potholes across the country? I travel every province, and I can tell you the potholes that are there. And then they put up a sign that says, potholes ahead. Fix the potholes. But then they've got a company that won a tender to make those signage. You see, can you see how it works? You see, fix the potholes. The sewerage that runs in our townships, whether it's Bishop Blavers, Guguletu, Nyanga, Blukombos, or whatever. Blukombos, Wallerstein, I can show you fountains running like this. And the impact on the people in that, they begin to think it's normal. It must be like this. You see, the dignity. When I was in Kailicha as a minister many, many years ago, in Side C and in Side B, we had in our street, the sewage was running like anything. And then you have to cross to go coming to the church, into the structure that we had. I called the mayor then, which was Patricia DeLille, and said to Mfundisi, we'll sort it out. A month and a half ago, I was in Kailicha. They called me, the sewage was running there. And, there was media there, and I spoke. The mayor called me. He said to me, please get your facts right. It's not a week. It wasn't 3 weeks, it's a week. I said, no, it's fine, Mayor, it's fine. But let me tell you, I live in Rondebosch. If a tree falls down, half an hour, they are there. Half an hour, they are there. If there's a pothole, half an hour, they are there. So, and he said to me, what about the evidence? I said, must I bring you the evidence? Which means I have to scoop up the stuff and take it to him. So I said, no, please fix our townships. Because the mentality in our townships is, it's okay to live like this. The indignity, the pain that is there. So I thought I'll share that with you because, if you go to Wallerstein, I don't want to even go further, just Wallerstein and Blukombos. It is terrible. And children play in that water. So let me come to what the Commission's doing. I've given you some part of it. The Commission's mandate is to protect, monitor, and advance and promote human rights in the Republic of South Africa. And it says to all people in South Africa. And now people are saying to us, but you're looking after foreign nationals more than you look after us. But our Act says we must, and the Act is from Chapter 9 in the Constitution. We cannot do otherwise but do that. But we do have a problem when it comes to that. The day before yesterday, I spoke in the Gauteng legislature, in the Parliament of Gauteng, on Africa Day. And I mentioned that, during the time of our struggle of liberation, the SADC countries opened their doors and their houses for us. The churches in the SADC countries housed our people. The churches gave us support and all of those things. So I said, but our mandate is this. But we do need to talk about it very seriously. We need to have a dialogue, and I hope that when the President has now appointed a commission to talk about the national dialogue, maybe that will be one of the issues that will come up in that regard. Because South Africa, at that time when we formed the new government, we said we do not want to have camps. Every other country's got camps, and when you've got a camp, a refugee camp, then the United Nations take over on that. But we decided, but just to say that in terms of our gratitude towards those countries that helped us, that we decided not to have camps. So we look after everybody in this country, 9 provinces, 9 provincial offices. We work through a complaints handling procedure. One of the things in line with the theme is we've got in the Constitution and in our Act, it says 184, Section 184, talks about that every government department or every state institution must report in the annual reports and give it to the Human Rights Commission to say what they've done around socio-economic rights. Now, socio-economic rights are health, education, water, sanitation, electricity, housing, etc., etc. Now we've seen over the years how corruption has actually assisted the failure of those rights of our people. I mean, we've seen it in the Zondo Commission. We are still having interaction with the public protector on it in terms of reporting and making sure that whatever we pick up, we send it to them as well. So we see these things, and we have been working as the Human Rights Commission, because corruption in modern days is really a denial of those rights, those socioeconomic rights of our people. You know, when I engaged somebody many years ago on this issue, he said, "Hulle can steal, they can steal, but at least fix the roads. Take the change, not the whole cookie jar." You see? Take the change, but not the whole cookie jar, because when you take the cookie jar, you can't fix the roads, you can't build roads, you can't build houses, you can't do this, you can't do that. In Limpopo, a classic example, I'll give you 2 examples. In Limpopo, and I was there the other day, you know, on my way to Mankweng, I saw a construction. We've got one in Cape Town as well, but that is not because of that. A construction where the road runs, right, it bypasses Polokwane. It's at the back of Polokwane to Louis Trichardt and so on. And then you find there, in the middle of that road, a bridge. A bridge. But no roads linking it. No roads linking it. It's just a bridge there. And the scaffolding are still standing, it's rusting. In Mankweng, when I got there to the police station, a multi-million rand police station, they had 3, not finished yet, but they had 3 contractors. The contractor, the one, built to window heights, the other one took it to the roof, and the other one put the inside, but it's not completed yet. Those people in Mankweng are denied those issues. In Rustenburg, they're just like you, what is Cape Town? Rea Vaya, not Cape Town, my city. When you come from one place of Rustenburg to the one end to the other, it's about 15 to 20 kilometers. They started that Rea Vaya in order to provide transport. To the side, they've built all these nice things. When I saw it the first time, when I went there last year, the cows are grazing there now. The question is, you bought buses. Because you don't just do the road without, where are those buses? Who benefits from those buses? In Klebeja, that municipality, there are buses standing there to the side. The roads have been made for the bus lanes there. You see, so you're denying people the right to transport, the right to feel free and safe. So yes, corruption is an injustice to the very poor of this country. It's an injustice to the poor of the country. But let me, I'm going to finish now, Rev. So, when I look at this conference, and I look at the composition of this conference are theologians, priests, ministers, and pastors. You have an audience every Sunday and every other day. So combine here, you may be sitting with 50, 20,000 people on a Sunday where you can talk to. The voice of the church is silent. Yes, we do get from structures, resolutions in our conferences, and etc., etc. In our own areas where we live, we don't stand up and address those issues. You know, one thought I had, I'll park this one up. You know how many complaints or calls I get from people? How they are being scammed. People lose their houses. Police, there are syndicates that call you to say, we got a parcel for you, it's an illegal substance, blah, 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 and then pay us 5,000 before the police come. That message, please, must go out to every member. And then saying, I met this guy online, and he's going to buy me a house in Constantia, sell your house, and then he disappears. That's the message. That's also corruption. But we cannot, because it's scammers, we're not able to deal with it. The construction mafia in our country is very, very huge. So let us please use the platform to ensure that our people are informed and they can stand up for themselves. The voice of the church, and I must say, going back to the agricultural sector, I must pay tribute to the former rector or chancellor of this institution, of Stellenbosch University, Professor Russell Botman. And he said, the farm worker and the farmer's child must have an equal opportunity. Who is monitoring that? Who's doing an audit on that? Are they there? And the question to the university is say, are they doing that? Because that will give our people also an opportunity. You know, during my time, and there are many of us here from an institution called Federal Theological Seminary. And Federal Theological Seminary was the heartbeat of black consciousness in this country. And the one thing we were taught was not only the academic side, was also leadership, was also how involvement in community, also how you empower communities. And that's why many of us coming from FEDSEM was either detained, tortured, like myself and many of us, in prison for years, because we were taught by those people who said to us, you are not only there to preach, you are there to uplift, you are there to defend, you are there to speak against injustice, and you must be there, the voice of the voiceless, and you must be there to protect the poor and the vulnerable. You use in your theme the most vulnerable communities. And you know, we in the church, and I'm saying, no, I shouldn't say we, but us in the church should be looking at how do we stand up. How many of us here today have written, maybe you have, I'm just doing a rhetorical question. How many of you have written to your ward councillor, have written to your municipality, have written to your member of parliament, doesn't matter which party, and complained and expressed God's anger at corruption that deprives the vulnerable community of access to those things that they need in their life? How many of us have stood up, like Martin Luther said, "Here I stand, I can't do otherwise"? So the challenge on corruption, yes, as the Human Rights Commission, we're in court with some of them, but because it's a criminal issue, we become a friend of the court. But we are taking it up in every province through our interaction, through our provincial managers, on saying, you are denying our people their right. Explain to me, how must people queue from 4 o'clock at the day hospital? And at 3 o'clock they say, the doctor's not here, or we don't have medicine. In Elst River they tell me, there's not a day hospital, there's a wag hospital. A waiting hospital. You have to wait. You know, and the poor gets poorer. But the voice of the church, and I'm generalizing, so please do not take it that I'm blaming anybody, I'm generalizing. But throughout this country, the voice of the church is quiet. I talked to you about black theology, black consciousness, black theology, but also we've learned from contextual and liberation theology. A sermon where you find yourself must be about context. And contextual theology informs you to stand up and say, the rights of my congregation members are violated because of corruption, this counselor, that one, etc., etc. But in the absence of that, we have lost the plot to say, here I stand, I can't do otherwise. I encourage you as leaders, faith leaders, including Muslims, inshallah, God willing, that we'll have a better way going forward, so that we can stand up, speak out, and speak louder. And not just speak amongst ourselves, but speak louder, and so on. And every opportunity that we can get to go and do that. You know, there's one of my famous priests is Father Camilo Torres. He was from Bolivia. And the book you can read, Rebel Priest by Doris Day. In 1964, he came from a very rich merchant family, you know, business person. And he became a priest. And then one day, he took off his cassock and he stole all the regalia, but kept the collar, the shirt. He folded it. He went to his bishop and laid it in front on the altar. And he said to the bishop, I've decided today to join the liberation movement and go into the forest to fight with people, to support the poor and the vulnerable and the oppressed. But this does not stop me from being a priest. He was killed in an ambush in February 1964. So let's learn from those who've gone before us. And let us go there and say to them that we will, whatever we do, we will continue that work. John Foster said, when he catechized, when he said to the churches, you must not go in politics, he said, I quote him now, he said, ministers of religion belongs to the pulpit, not in the politics, and get the politics out of the pulpit. But there's a big difference. When people ask me, that's why when I got into politics, I took the word reverend out of my name. I said, I'm Chris. But what I say, there are two things. One, there's power politics, and that you leave to the politicians that go into government. But there's prophetic justice. That prophetic justice is the politics of justice. And that's why I urge you, my sisters and my brothers, that we really should be committed to that. Lastly, and I'm going to end, Reverend Father, and the Lord be with you. A very sensitive topic. It is the LGBTQI community. In 1991, the SACC sent me and a number of people, we were about 30, to Canada to go on a study tour on the HIV and AIDS, because at that time we knew very little, and everybody thought it was an airborne disease. And we had to go with those communities. And I met a Roman Catholic priest who was at that stage excommunicated, and they formed the church, what were called the Toronto Metropolitan Church. And I asked him the question, about the how he feels and why is the reason. And it was the wrong question for me to ask why the reason, but remember at that time we were all learning. And he said to me, if I could change through a behavioral program to change me, I'll take it. But I can't. Why do you think I'm subjecting myself to so much pain, humiliation, insult, and victimization? I'm born like this. And 3 weeks ago, I attended with the United Nations a conference on, we call it intersex persons. And it's persons that are born with, two or one, and so the person looks like this, but the genital is something different. And I like what the late Pope Francis said about it. And I would like to urge you, because we need to build one society, not talk about them and us, but let's talk about a society in which this conference can contribute through all the inputs that were done. And then I end again. Here I stand, I can't do otherwise. Thank you so much.